Hi. Good afternoon. If you're like me and you're communicating with your family like I was last night in FaceTime, you may have had some difficulty explaining why you fly halfway across the world and go to a place which is about 50 meters from a sunny beach to sit inside a dark theater like this and talk to people you work with on an everyday basis. I had great trouble explaining it, and it makes it even more special that you're here today. So we've put something together that we actually hope adds value and that we're very passionate about, which is purposeful brands, and actually how not just to develop them, but also how to develop the campaigns and the organizations behind them to make them fly. And we're calling that Building Purposeful Brands, Campaigns and Organizations in a Digital Age, because that's what all of us are dealing with. In 45 minutes, we're going to try and, cover some key findings of some work that we did with Google for Think Brand that really signifies how winners in this space are characterizing themselves differently to the rest of the pack. 2, we wouldn't be consultants if we didn't offer a framework that hopefully you can take and actually apply to your own business to actually make sure that that's lined up to deliver the brand purpose. And then we're going to try and bring that alive with Tales from the Trenches. 3 fantastic marketing leaders here today that I'd like to introduce right now. The first is Fernando Acosta. Now, Fernando heads global marketing at Avon, one of the most purposeful brands that I know. He joined Avon in 2011. Since then, he's led the LATAM, which is the most successful business, and just recently took the global role. At Unilever, he was one of the founding fathers of the Dove Real Beauty brand positioning and campaign. So he's going to speak right after me. Then Marc Schroeder, who leads the global nutrition category for PepsiCo, but just before that led the global brand leadership of Quaker and joined PepsiCo in 2002, went to Russia after that to lead their food business, and he cut his teeth at Procter & Gamble, as did Mike Wege, who is the Chief Growth and Marketing Officer of Hershey's, and he joined Hershey's from Procter & Gamble in 2002. And among other things, built their business in Asia from the ground up, 2 years in Shanghai, and again, a very, very purposeful brand. And me, well, I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of a company called Millward Brown Vermeer. You won't have heard of us because we're only 1 year old. A little bit more about us in a second, but we led Marketing 2020, and my background is actually Unilever, so we have a 2-on-2 here. So I mentioned Millward Brown. Let me give you just a little 1-minute introduction about our view on marketing.
Marketing today is strategy. Redefining value at the crossroads of technology, sustainability, and humanity. Winning marketers connect the business to human needs, turning big data into actionable insights, eliminating internal silos, orchestrating all touch points to deliver a total brand experience with real purpose. We believe that purpose drives growth, and we believe that winning leaders can balance today with tomorrow. We understand today's leadership tension, wanting to make a meaningful difference, but everyday business pressure getting in the way. That's why we're helping leaders to address the big questions with an approach that combines research, brand, and business expertise for unleashing purpose-led growth.
So that's our philosophy, but what we actually do is 5 separate practices. We help on the strategy front with segmentation, so literally global brand segmentation, getting to identify your markets like we did for Marriott. Then a lot of work around purpose, so we're very proud of our work on Dove and on Quaker and Tropicana, but also Dulux, the paint, which campaign I think many of you know. We build marketing organizations, like just recently the Verizon 500 people strong marketing organizations, and then help train the people in those organizations. And we're quite proud that Google chose us to do the Marketing in a Digital Age masterclass for them. And finally, because all of this doesn't get mustered in the organization, we help with the valuation. What is all this worth? And we do a lot of that work for Red Bull. But believe it or not, we don't actually talk about ourselves that much. What we like is to be part of where this is going. I mentioned Marketing 2020. I actually quote some statistics from Insights 2020. And some of this is captured in an article that we wrote last summer for the Harvard Business Review, which is really about the new rules of marketing. And that gets to what we're going to discuss today, because we did a piece of work with Google that really talks around how do you organize for these purposeful brands? And I want to just summarize very briefly what the marketing leaders that we interviewed and we studied talked about. Factors like the fact that their brands now have opportunities through many new touch points in this digital age to bring alive what they do on a daily basis. Some of them actually are able to now finally deliver new solutions because the digital tools allow them to do that, like the Bank of America. Almost all of them are challenged at a business level because there are now people coming into the category, whether it's Airbnb for Marriott or Skype for Verizon or Uber for transport, players that don't accept the old rules and are really reframing the categories. And finally, this thinking about, once we know what we stand for, how do we bring that alive in a total purpose, in a total experience, I should say. And there's some overriding sort of market forces here, driven again by digital. The first is transparency. If you do it anywhere in the world, it will be known. So you might as well use it as an advantage, like Patagonia does. You really can find out where everything is built. And digital is the thing that's driving this to steroids. Because it's like the hot potato being passed up the hierarchy. Because digital used to be a media question. Do we buy those banners or not? It became very full and square a marketing mix challenge. One, we can offer new value, but two, we can actually interact with our consumers, learn from them. But now, because of these new players coming in and redefining categories, it's the big business question. So that raises the question of what does it take to win? And how do winners act differently to those in their categories that don't grow as fast? Just a few quick insights. The first is, when you talk to winners, they don't talk about digital anymore. They talk about marketing in a digital age. That's their mindset. Secondly, they don't talk about handoffs between different silos in the organization. They really think and work to seamless integration. How and what does the team look like that makes it all happen? And therefore, they're also less interested in what's our new structure going to look like. And actually, far more, they take an integrated approach. And this is the framework that I'd like to offer up for you to think through. Because what these winners do is they make sure they have one strategy, a little bit more about that in 1 second, and then they look at the people, the structure, the processes, and the tools very, very in an integrated fashion. And I think throughout these stories, you'll see that coming back. Now, the first point is that one strategy, and it's easy to skip by. But I wanted to actually grab back to Fernando's past, because Dove, it won all the prizes again last year. How is that possible 15 years later? Well, it's because the leaders from 4 regions around the world with different positioning statements went through the very painful exercise of creating, there's Fernando, 15 years younger, a Dove one-pager. Now, the signal of that message was to 2,200 other people around the world: don't reinvent the strategy. It's on this one piece of paper. Now go. Do it all around the world. And that signal of no negotiated strategy change and all the empowerment on the activation is something that comes back throughout. But then you need the pieces in place, starting with, number one, the people. No one will deny that there is an enormous war on talent. Companies like Unilever, Procter & Gamble, everybody is fighting with talent, with competitors for talent that they'd never had before. And it's tough to get the people you want. And what we see is that it takes change at the top and at the bottom. At the top, like Mondelez appointing somebody that will describe herself as wacky as the CMO of Mondelez. Huge statement of intent there by the CEO to the rest of the company. But also, millennials, it's been said many times before, but not often with the data behind it. The companies that are better, and Agency 2020 showed this, at recruiting and retaining millennials in their organizations, they outperform those organizations that don't. Then about the structure. The first thing which is really noticeable, that there's absolutely new thinking about what is marketing, who sits in marketing. And all the data and analytics is being brought in by the big winners into marketing. Not in a separate group, it's marketing. And then there's this whole sort of community driving the value that those communities need, but also being the ambassadors internally for what those communities actually reward. And finally, there's a lot about doing stuff, creating content. You can't allow your agencies to do all of that anymore because of the 24/7, 365 need for content. And so then marketers and the leaders' role become about sort of bringing that together as orchestrators and actually finding the teams that are tasked for success. It is far more about just-in-time right expertise in the right team than it is about rebuilding your marketing organization. So orchestrating that is crucial for success. And then finally, if you're not hiring people into marketing where you can't, like me, translate or actually even explain what some of these job titles mean, then you're doing something wrong. This is Nike's marketing recruitment page. It takes new expertise. And when you have those people, it's very clear that it makes a mindset of actually fighting those silos, communicating across the silos. What this chart shows very clearly is that the marketers that communicate more with IT, with HR, with finance, they're the ones that are growing revenues faster to their competitors. It's about expertise, but it's also about that mindset of collaboration across the silos. And then the processes. I'll be really short about this because, one, it is really about making sure that you pull back and let marketers do their great thing. Simple guidelines like Red Bull has. And then actually empowering people down the organization so that they have the right to speak. And finally, everything's new. Training wins. The organizations that train their people, they win. And in the moment of time, it's not just about classroom, it's about all the things around that. On the phone, whenever they're doing their brand planning or agency briefings, training works. So altogether, it's about that integrated approach. Now, let's bring that alive with some real stories. And first up, I would like to hear and actually invite over Fernando Acosta. And as you come up, I'll show the Avon film, Fernando.
Who is the company that puts mascara on lashes and food on tables, that fights wrinkles with one hand and breast cancer with the other, that speaks out against domestic violence and for women's financial independence, that supports 6 million representatives around the world? Who is the company? Avon. For over 125 years, Avon has stood for beauty, innovation, optimism, and above all, for women. Avon. Beauty for a purpose.
This film summarizes very well what the why of this company. We're here because we believe that a world with more empowered women will be a more beautiful world. Whilst for some of you might believe that beauty appears to be superficial, we at Avon believe that it's the exact opposite. Many deep beauty insights have informed us through the decades, and they all come together under a very simple truth, that is that beauty is created with more beauty. And that has been encapsulated in our new brand statement, Beauty for a Purpose, that reaffirms our commitment on empowering women through beauty and helping them achieve financial independence. And that is, again, under a very, very, very simple insight, that is, when a woman feels beautiful, she sees more beauty and creates more beauty around her. The case for women. The most empowerment driver for women's empowerment is to achieve financial independence. Despite the recent progress made in the last decades, the World Economic Forum says that it will take 80 years, 80, for women to achieve economic parity with men. That needs to happen much sooner, and we at Avon have a role to play. When a woman earns her own income, she earns a lot more than that. Her income transfers to her children, to her family, to the community. Almost every aspect of the society that is measurable improves when we empower a woman. The case for Avon. Many people talk about empowerment. We've been empowering women for 129 years. It was the first company that did it, and it's done authentically. We are a pioneer in social selling. Our founder, David McConnell, did the whole business on what we call today the Avon Beauty Circle. And finally, we're putting our money where our mouth is, supporting the biggest causes for women, almost $1 billion, to try and help eradicate breast cancer and against domestic violence. What's the whole Avon story? And it's very simple. We develop great products, so our representatives can sell them easily to their friends, to their family, to their clients. We give them the earning opportunity so they can achieve self-reliance, self-independence, and they become empowered. And we know at Avon that when a woman is empowered, she empowers others. That's what we call the Avon Beauty Circle. That is the ABC of women's empowerment. So how can we bring to life beauty for a purpose today in a modern, more relevant way that links both our beauty and our empowering message? And we found that the best way to do it was through our representatives. So I want you to meet Agnes. We shot her about 4 weeks ago, and she's been working as an independent representative since 2011. So watch this film.
Ser revendedora Avon me proporcionou muitas coisas. Eu poder fazer o que eu quiser sem depender de ninguém. Não vendo produtos, eu vendo beleza, eu vendo autoestima, eu vendo bem-estar. Você se torna mais comunicativa, você conhece muita gente. Você acaba virando amiga dos clientes. Tem um vínculo maior, não só ir lá só para vender. Give me my time. Help me to learn everything that I will need. And I hope that...
We have 6 million women to tell those stories. And the center of the new brand campaign are our representatives. They want to do everything with them, for them, and about them. As you can see from the images, we're trying to portray the best of them. And there are 3 words: strength, pride, and confidence. Because what they do every day, they're trying to create a more beautiful world. We're a we brand, we're not a me brand. Plurality is a key aspect of our new campaign that's summarized behind Beauty for a Purpose. Our tone of voice will change. We are witty, wise, and welcoming. That's what we call the 3 Ds. Differently to the 3 Ds, which are distant, dull, or didactic. How we're going to home all our messages is going to be through our new publishing site, beautyforapurpose.com, that was launched in the US in May, and it will be rolled out across the whole world by Q3. That's when you're going to be able to tell our own stories about our great products, great empowerment messages, and great causes that we support every day. So how did we make it happen? Actually, it was quite simple. It was very obvious. We had a remarkable story to be told. Yeah, this brand was created and started empowering women 34 years before women actually vote in the US. It was very simple to bring that to life and to talk it authentically that we believe in empowering the world. We inspire with our vision of the future. We are the company for women today. We went to the future, we went to 2036, when we are going to be 150 years old, and we tried to look what the world would look like if in 2036, and what the world could look like if we succeed in empowering women. We looked at the sliding doors, amazing stories to be told. And we made it personal. Yeah. Empowerment for us at Avon is very personal, and we looked at the hopes and dreams of our mothers, our daughters, our sisters, our nieces, everything. And finally, we brought it to life. There's a lot to be told about Beauty for a Purpose, but we wanted people to feel it. In the last 6 months, we created more than 50 pieces of communication, all at very low cost. We learned a lot before we actually became public. Our challenges, it wasn't difficult to bring the best talent out there to try and help us on our journey of empowering women. Everybody that joined really believes that the world with more empowered women will be a more beautiful world, and we brought the fantastic track record to the table, and we also brought new people to help us create different, more engaging content. We brought experts in creating publishing, communication. We created gaming, filmmakers, virals. So stay tight, because we have started only to begin to tell the Avon story. And finally, an analogy. I'm not sure how many of you play golf, but I can tell you I'm not very good at it. But when you're putting, the chances of you to get that little ball in that hole is 0 if you're putting short. So what do I mean by that? It's easier to kill a great creative idea than to nurture it. Creativity does take courage and make people feel uncomfortable. For you to generate a conversation, you need at least somebody to have that conversation with you. We're not planning to push messages to audience. We're trying to engage in highly engaging content. So yesterday was Father's Day. So, you know, there's always, and the only place I want to mention men is that there are fathers out there that are creating some beautiful daughters to create a more beautiful world. So I wanted to end up with one ad on Father's Day that we just made.
My grandmother told me I talk too much. My friends told me to always wait for the boy to call. My coach told me this just isn't your game. And my dad? And my dad said, F that. I'm so glad I listened to my dad.
Thank you very much. Join us at Avon.
Thank you, Fernando. Thank you, Fernando, and for your lessons about how being a dad. No, I think it's great. And also thank you, Marc. I mean, it's great, truly great to be here and to talk to you about a brand, Quaker, iconic brand that really probably everybody here has grown up with, or most of you at least. And to talk about purpose. Purpose is something that really is at the heart of PepsiCo, and especially also at the heart of Quaker. But actually, a couple of years ago, probably we had a case for change. We were very fragmented and a decentralized company in how we treated the brand. And really, to efficiently and effectively unleash the power of this brand was definitely necessary. Quaker is one of the most trusted and respected brands in the world, especially also in the US, but actually all across the world. But actually, the love that Quaker could build, is something that we can still enhance. So we embarked on our journey, our lighthouse finding, our purpose, our vision, our true north. And we looked for inspiration everywhere, including Dove, actually. So we looked at Fernando's case in that sense as well. But also Guinness, Johnny Walker, were all brands that did a fantastic job in actually teaching us three things. One, having a unifying purpose is something that really connects with the consumer, but also connects your organization internally. Secondly, you have to be rooted in a universal insight that goes across cultures, countries, etc. Something that really supersedes it all. And then thirdly, having a global purpose is nice, but actually the adaptation locally is what makes it truly powerful. So the local lens is what really matters. And going back to our roots is where we found our purpose. Quaker was founded about 135 years ago, and Mr. Crowell actually built this brand to overcome the circumstances of life, for people to actually find good nutrition. And that, still today, truly holds true. Today, people can be looking for nutrition, because they have no access to it, or because their lives are too busy, actually, to get to it on a daily basis. We set up this global team to actually find that purpose together and really drive the idea around it and to actually make this something that we all owned. And we learned that we had to focus on what is common, not about the differences. Every market is different, of course. But what are those commonalities that really drive collaboration? The foundation of good nutrition, oats at the heart of it all, standing for ideal mornings, but also to be made for busy lives, because all of us are living busy lives. So we find our connective tissue for both our consumers and our organization, but then how do we bring this to life? First of all, the visual identity. And design is very much now also very much at the forefront of PepsiCo and how we look at things. So looking at Quaker as this timeless wisdom for a modern world and bringing the purpose to life actually in our visual identity. Then communications, landing on one global idea that we have globally, that we all landed on together as a global team. But then again, those local lenses, giving the space, let's say, for every country to bring this to life in a locally relevant way. Innovation, made for busy lives. So now in China, you would find Quaker in a bottle. And in the US, we would have super grains, so adding oats and also quinoa, for example, for busy lives today. Cause, very much connected to our purpose as well. And today in the UK, we have a fantastic campaign around powering you to do more of what matters, with Quakering nourishing their future, where we actually supply magic breakfast to children in poverty, let's say, situations in the UK itself. And then how is next? So not what is next, but actually the how is so important. The lessons learned that we have, finding your lighthouse, number one, focusing on the commonalities, not those differences, empowering your teams from all over the world to make it happen. acknowledging also that good ideas can come from everywhere and not only from the center or from the biggest countries. And embracing your heritage is very true and very important. But we also have our open challenges as we go forward. Balancing local and global, of course, remains a challenge. We have a global model, but again, how do you make that always relevant in the ever-changing world around us? And that is connected to also the need for speed. You have to move fast. And I'll skip one point. I mean, you know, the people and processes that we therefore have to build and the culture around us of collaboration is therefore so important, but also we need to evolve our organizational structure to really make this effective. Because a hero culture is not what's going to cut it for us. And that brings us to also the global agency model, because that almost has to mirror it. And I understand there are some heroes, you know, also in the agency kind of world. So how do we make that collaborative model really work for us all? And I think Mike has some good ideas about that. So Mike, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you very much, Marc. And I'm delighted to be here today to talk with you about something that's very important to me and to the Hershey Company. It's about how we find purpose and success by bringing goodness to the world. But first, a little bit of background about the Hershey Company, since we're here in Europe. We're a US-based company. We're 120 years old. We're about $7.5 billion in sales. We sell more than 80 brands, and we sell in over 70 countries. We employ 22,000 remarkable people that share an enduring commitment to doing well by doing good. And this all started with our founder, Milton S. Hershey, when he set out to build a purpose-driven company in the last century.
At the start of the 20th century, a plain-spoken American entrepreneur had a bold idea: mass-produce chocolate and make it affordable for all. By 1903, Milton Hershey built the world's largest chocolate factory in rural Pennsylvania. Around it, he built homes for workers, parks for families, schools for kids, plus many conveniences of the modern industrial age. But Milton Hershey's dream went far beyond chocolate. With vision, tenacity, and courage, he created a land of opportunity. In 1909, Milton and Catherine Hershey started a school for orphan boys. Today, Milton Hershey School provides free housing, education, and medical care to thousands of disadvantaged boys and girls. It is symbolic of the purpose-driven brand that Hershey's grew to become. More than a century after our founding, opportunity, hope, and giving back remain our guiding principles. In the U.S. and around the globe, we hold true to our founder's purpose, bringing goodness to the world.
So, as you can see, higher purpose has been at the heart of the Hershey Company since its very beginning. And it continues to be at the core of how we think and operate today, recently regalvanized in the last 5 or 6 years. But before going any further, it's important to acknowledge that we're first and foremost a publicly traded company and a for-profit business. And so that naturally begs the question, does being a purpose-driven organization matter in business terms? On one level, we found aligning our purpose with our business strategy has led to Hershey is a great place to work. Our brands are ones that consumers feel great about. We have a strengthened corporate reputation, and we have partnerships around the communities that we live and work in that improve those communities. But what about that bottom line? What about results? Well, I'll let them speak for themselves. Thank you. For Hershey, having purpose at our core is working. So let's talk a bit about our purpose and how we define it and a little bit about how we implement it in just a few short minutes. Today, this is our statement of purpose. We exist to share something worth smiling about. It's brought to life through our iconic brands. I'm sorry, can you go back one? It's brought to life through our iconic brands, our great employees, and our commitment to children in need. So let's briefly go through a couple of examples. Our Hershey chocolate brand is linking purpose with the consumer through the brand's commitment to simple ingredients. Consumers are telling us that they care more than ever about what's in their food. They want food that's made with the fewest, the simplest, and the best sourced ingredients ever. And we agree with them. And since our sourcing and formulation efforts as a company are consistent with our purpose, we can deliver. Here's an example of how those things blend together in a 15-second ad from our Canada business.
Milk and cocoa, cocoa and almonds, almonds and me and you.
Simple ingredients, simply delicious. Hershey's.
Now, we're all working to embrace technology and how to apply it effectively to build brands. Here's an example where we're leveraging digital and mobile technology to give consumers full point-of-purchase transparency. In fact, we're leading an industry initiative in the United States to bring QR codes on pack that deliver complete nutritional facts, ingredients, allergens, and claims and certifications. Again, taking purpose, linking it with the consumer, in this case through technology, to build brand equity and trust. Now let's briefly turn to our remarkable people and how they're developing our purpose. Listed on this slide are just a few of the many ways that Hershey people have embraced environmental leadership and building sustainability as a way of life at Hershey. Finally, we embrace a continuing commitment that started with our founder to helping children in need. Today, as we grow globally, we're focusing our resources and food expertise to provide basic nutrition to help kids learn and grow where we do business around the world. As you can see, our purpose drives decisions and actions, and it drives our business each and every day. We believe that operating in a responsible, sustainable way is good for our business, good for our employees, and good for our communities. So looking back, how did this all come together, especially, as I mentioned, as we re-galvanized in the last 5 or 6 years? Well, for us, it all started with leveraging knowledge and insights as a core strategy. We also embraced the change reality that was happening in the marketplace and the pace of change, and looked at how we might work it to our advantage. And of course, we connected the entire organization through great planning and integration capabilities. With that said, as we look ahead, like everybody else, we see great challenges and opportunities ahead. And so a couple of things that we need to tackle are that we've got to further drive the mindset of accepting the exponential change world that we're in and realize that what got us here isn't going to get us where we want to be. And we need to greatly strengthen our skill in developing agility muscle in today's world. We believe that lean and connected, ideally through purpose, will win the race to tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I think if I just look back at Cannes over the last 3 years, purpose became a theme. Last year, Marc Pritchard spent a whole session on it. Keith Reed has spoken at great length about it. I think there's very few people in the room that aren't convinced that purposeful brands have the advantage and it's the right thing to do. And I think your story also adds the business perspective to it, which often is one that's more difficult to convince the colleagues about. But I'd like to ask you a little bit about okay, so you have the positioning now, you have the purpose either by reconnecting to your roots or actually moving forward, and still you need to make it happen. And Mike, I'd like to start with you. You've got marketing colleagues all over the world. You have this clear purpose. What is it then that you can do to actually equip them for success?
Yeah, well, it certainly goes back to something you talked about in your opening comments. For us, it has a lot to do with the training and development of our organization worldwide. And it starts, it's certainly the purpose component is there as part of the messaging and part of how we work, but it also comes back to marketing fundamentals. We actually worked with MB Vermeer several years ago, building a unique Hershey brand building framework that we rolled out around the world. We've expanded that in the last few years, what we call our BBF 2.0. And we have formalized training in our Hershey Marketing Academy that has to do with brand building, has to do with advertising, has to do with all the fundamentals of how we work. And of course, that's ever evolving as we all work in this world of exponential change. In addition to the formal training, as you pointed out, it's also about the day-to-day training that happens manager to employee. And those capabilities are advanced through our culture and our values, in addition to just best practices as we're learning and sharing across the organization. But it's that commitment to learning, training, and further development of our people that's been critical for us.
So you mentioned people. It's been mentioned many times over, and I showed that slide of you guys in the Dove team 15 years ago. I mean, I remember literally how difficult it was to get people to all align on one piece of paper, and at one point there was dinner, and we as facilitators went to dinner, and we wouldn't allow you to leave until you've got your one-pagers sorted. Marc, it strikes me, listening to your story, you're actually on a similar journey, or have been. Can you talk a little bit about the dynamic, indeed, of bringing people that are clearly in a regional organization, but bringing them to a global brand positioning?
Yeah, no, clearly, I mean, we are evolving as an organization, and definitely you have to build a coalition of the willing in that sense. And actually, we learned a lot about the Dove story, because also we have been in that room as a team with our global teams together. Really not leaving anyone out, you know, before we landed on the purpose journey. But from there, you also have to take it further in terms of having your your monthly check-ins with the countries, really making that part of the processes that we've built. Taking people, you know, out of their comfort zone also, and we took them on a global conference in a very impoverished part of the world, actually, and really build, you know, our connective tissue together. So I think that is something that was clearly a lesson from other companies, but is something that we are also implementing today as we speak.
So I think one of the dynamics and tensions that you so often hear is between a global or a regional brand owner who has a clear purpose in mind, and then geographically based business leaders that, you know, have a P&L that they're responsible for. They usually have multiple brands that they're responsible for. Fernando, what fascinates me about your career is you've gone from one side to the other. You've been a business leader in Unilever, you were a global brand leader, and you were a business leader again, and you were the regional leader for Latin America for Avon, and now you've taken the global brand leadership role again. What drove you to those switches, and particularly the last one?
I think the last one has been a very interesting one. People ask me what I've been doing at Avon whilst I was running Latin America, and my expression was, I've been a plumber. I said, what do you mean a plumber? I said, well, I've been actually trying to fix the pipelines to make sure that we ensure we have consistent processes for you to implement and create, if you like, repeatable models. But what the opportunity that I have today is to make sure that we put outstanding fluids and water into those effective pipelines that we currently have. And what is that? It's actually nurturing the brand. And I think it's a golden opportunity that I had throughout my career now to be touching such an authentic brand that really wants to create a beautiful world. So the answer would be great water inside those pipelines to generate more growth.
Great. Now we're running out of time, but I always end with one question because it was very useful to me, and I want to hear your answers. Hopefully it's useful to the audience too. You have, on average, a little bit more experience than the average person in the audience. 10 years ago, what do you wish you'd known what you know now? Just as a closing comment, Mike, perhaps.
Sure. Actually, there's a great quote. It has to do with change, because the pace of change is ever increasing. And several years ago, Bill Gates said something to the effect, and paraphrasing, of the way change works is you're probably going to overestimate the impact in the first 2 years and underestimate the impact in the next 10 years. And so it just gives some sensibility to how you need to think about change. Don't overreact, but at the same time, know that you've got to react because it'll swamp you in a decade if you're not paying close enough attention. It has to do with exponential curves, really.
Marc.
Doing more of what matters. I mean, I think that that actually is something that I really, try to live now every day also. I think it's something that I connect very closely to myself. Being with my kids without the iPhone on, for example, is one of those, exponents of that. So I think that's something maybe that I would think about.
Fernando.
In my case, 10 years ago, I was too young, but I would tell you that I would, what I'm applying today is the same with my children. I'm married, I have 4 children, and my only, if you like, word that I have with them is to make sure that they choose what they really love. Because I believe that you can be the best at anything that you love. But you have to have your heart, make it personal, to make sure you become the best. I haven't seen any soccer player that have been outstanding without loving playing soccer. So I think that's my role as a father, to make sure that I help them, guide them to really where their heart is.
Well, I have one too, which I'll use as a closing. I was sitting next to somebody in an airplane. He was a very esteemed business leader and had gone on to do bigger things even beyond that. And he said something which at the time I thought was more relevant to his industry. He was in banking than mine, but it's actually now become really pertinent because everything is changing, and everything, I mean, in terms of technology, in the way we have access to information. And I find myself literally scraping my head many times when I'm listening to pitches of agencies or technology providers. And his words of wisdom, he was talking about derivatives at the time, but I think they're very true, is that if the company that's trying to explain something to you explains it and you don't understand, ask them to explain it again. But if after the second time you really don't understand, it's not your problem, it's their problem. And that sense of confidence, I guess it comes with age, has helped me a little bit along the way. And I think we are all on a learning journey. If one thing came out of Marketing 2020, it is that this industry is on the more flux than ever before. Now that's inspiring because we are paving the way. And it's really scary because we're paving the way. And so a learning mindset, I think, is probably what guides us as well. To you, again, thank you for stepping away from the sunny beach. To you, thank you very much for flying over. Really appreciate your time. See you next year.